Welcome to Real Talk, Indiana's premier talk show on real estate investing, where we talk each week about investing your money right here in Central Indiana. The tips, tricks, do's, and don'ts, brought to you by CIREIA, Central Indiana's oldest and largest real estate investing association. Hello there. My name is Vicki Perry, and I'm the Executive Director of CIREIA. We have over 600 members, all active in or learning how to be active in real estate here in the Indiana market. This radio show is available on FM 95.9, AM 950, podcast on YouTube, and www.cireia.org. Join us each week as we talk about how you can make your money more active with better returns and help the community that you live in with real estate done the right way. Now, on with the show.
This is Real Talk, the only local real estate investing radio show where active investors discuss real estate investing done the right way every Saturday and Sunday from noon until 1 p.m. I'm Ron Watson, president of the board of directors of CIREIA, and your host today. We're going to be discussing some of the headlines that are affecting the real estate investing world, and you can check out how to contact each of our co-hosts on our website at cireia.club and find out how to reference the materials we're going to be talking about there too. Joining me are three of the top investors in Central Indiana. First, we have Dave Short with Century 21 Sheets. Dave's an investor, realtor, coach, mentor, and one of the most sought-after rehabbers in Central Indiana. Welcome back, Dave.
Great to be here.
And also joining us is Brian Snyder, operations manager for Simple Wholesaling, one of the most the top wholesalers in the state of Indiana. Sorry, Brian, how are you doing today?
Very well, thank you.
I'll try to do better with this going forward. And Sterling Davis, owner of Athosity Property Management and vice president of the board of CIREIA. Welcome back, Sterling.
Hello. Glad
So,
to be here.
Everybody, we had a really great meeting February 7th, the CIREIA main meeting. We had a panel of local investors talking about how they analyze properties before buying it. Dave was a panelist. Brian was the moderator. And it was very interesting, had some really good feedback. We had a different perspective from each of our panelists, and I thought we might pick up on that discussion today. And I wanted to start with Dave, and if you could just give us an idea when you're starting to look at a deal, how do you analyze a property and what makes sense in terms of why you may do a deal with a particular location?
Well, as everybody knows, and you point it out every week, which is I'm a flipper. I buy and sell properties in Indianapolis, and each one of the questions that we're going to talk about today, Brian can address based on his what his company's looking for, as Sterling can as kind of clients that his company's looking for. So, the first thing we talked about in the meeting last week was the location. And the location for me is going to be sometimes totally different than what Brian's looking for and maybe even what Sterling's looking for in the type. When I look at location, I'm looking for certain criteria, and most of those criteria is I want the area to be an owner-occupant area. And the reason I say that is that I don't have any rentals, nor do I desire to have any rentals in the marketplace. So I'm looking for a totally different location. And those locations are a lot more difficult to weed out and find. So that's one of the things. And then, going to Brian, I'll let him address what kind of locations that those guys are looking for.
Yeah, I mean, luckily we people always say, like, well, where are you guys looking for properties? Honestly, we're all over the place. We'll look at just about anything, just because our goal is to buy properties for people that are flipping, buy properties for people that are wanting to do buy and holds, that want the rental properties. So we're looking for a little bit of everything, and we're trying to basically find stuff that still that will be able to have value for us, but also value for them too on the other side. So we're looking for things that are all over, but where Dave is looking for, just those hot areas for flips where a lot of renovations are being done, where a lot of families are moving into, or just a young crowd, that hot area. Sterling's going to look at it from the point of view of basically, hey, this is a good rental community. This is where, there's good rental value here. It's a nice area, where, kind of maybe not like that hot area that Dave is flipping and stuff like that. So we're kind of back and forth between those and kind of really trying to manage both of those both of those classes to make sure that all of our investors are getting what they need to. So Sterling, I know you can talk a little bit more about what people are looking for from those rental communities.
Yeah. For us, I mean, it's definitely a situation where, similar to what Dave says when it says owner-occupied communities, I think those make for the best rental areas too. But then when they start turning into rental areas, we're like, wait a minute. So it's like this balancing act, I guess you can say, because we want to be able to have a strong owner-occupied neighborhood, but we want to make sure that we're able to get there before the value increases to, i.e. like Fountain Square, or i.e. Bates Hendricks, because like 2 years ago, Bates Hendricks was our perfect ground for a rental area, right? Now, Bates Hendricks is a little too pricey for what we're going to be looking for when it comes down to cash flow.
Well, the other thing with location is, as an experienced flipper in Indianapolis, my locations have probably done a 360. And it's kind of like, it's not that I wouldn't like to be in those locations, is that now I can't compete in those locations because of all the hedge funds coming in and buying up property and turning them into rentals. So there's a lot of good communities that, and I call them cookie cutter, the houses built in the, from 1990 on, in those kind of neighborhoods. It's really hard for me to get in those neighborhoods to find a flip, and it's hard for Sterling's investors to find a flip or to find a rental there, because a hedge fund can pay so much more for the house than an average investor going into our marketplace can pay, because they're comfortable with yields that most of the people we deal with would not be comfortable with, a 5% rate of return on their capital invested. So now we really strive and try to look at locations that are what I call pocket areas. In areas, it's like right now, Irvington is a fairly hot neighborhood for us, and the reason is the hedge funds aren't there because of the cost of getting these houses on the market, and there's a lot of 2-bedrooms there. Where now in today's world, we can flip a 2-bedroom. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we wouldn't hardly look at doing a 2-bedroom in a neighborhood, but now there's neighborhoods there that we can get in. I mean, we can bring an Irvington house to market at $120,000, and they would have a spectacular house, and their payment would only be $850 a month.
Well, I think that's the thing that's interesting, where the landlording kind of has evolved, I guess you can say, where five years ago, I would say it was really what we were selling is the idea of cash flow. Like, you know what I mean? If I can get cash flow, I can come out bid Dave. You know what I mean? And now where I see it's more of a strategy of a flipping, and then we're going to start looking at a hold process, which that's kind of how the Burr strategy developed, right? Where it's the buy, the rehab, the rent, the refinance, and repeat. So it's very important that we're able to be in neighborhoods like Irvington is a perfect example, where we can do the buy, we can do the rehab, and the rents are going to be stabilized enough that we're able to have true value. Where 5 years ago, it really wasn't about that. It was I was working with more people about, hey, do it have enough cash flow? Equity doesn't really matter. Now, equity is just as important to my person as much as Dave's person.
How much do you have in today's market, if you have a new investor going in, how nice does that house have to be for a rental buyer, where before you just threw paint and carpet and I'm suspecting that's changed.
Oh, absolutely, it's changed. I mean, 5 years ago we were putting carpet, and it was the brown carpet, and we were putting the linoleum, and it was the rolling that kind of everybody saw, you know what I mean? And then we had that ugly tan. If I see another rental with that ugly tan, now we have to be more thoughtful about it, right? So now we have cases of the like rubber-backed vinyl planks that you can put in, and the it's more of a light gray, and it's lighter, more white cabinets instead of brown cabinets. You know, it's definitely comes to be more modern than what it used to be. Like I don't know if I thought about that 5 years ago.
It's whatever's cheapest,
Yeah,
whatever's livable. And, yeah, but I mean that definitely plays a factor now. Of like, I mean, you look in a lot of, you know, if you go on anywhere now, go on Zillow and just look around, you see like every other house has that gray and white trim and stuff.
Yep.
But it needs to be fashionable. It needs to be modern looking. That's what, not just what, you know, people are looking for on the flip side, but that's also what renters are looking for as well. If they're in those nicer neighborhoods, they want to kind of feel like they're a part of that neighborhood. They want to be living the same lifestyle and stuff. So,
well, let's talk about one thing. You guys talked about identifying properties, and I always wonder, how do you determine what really is an emerging area? Like Dave mentioned Irvington right now, and he mentioned that partly because there's not the hedge fund people in there, but how do you, I mean, I think a lot of it's timing, but how do you kind of determine that, you know, now that's a good area to start working in, whereas 5 years ago maybe it wasn't? And what changes to the point where, okay, now we're going to do that?
Well, one of the things that we look at in some of the areas that we go or would like to go is what's the community around the houses doing? Mm-hmm. You know, for instance, Irvington has East Washington Street. They pulled, you know, they allowed parking. So they basically you know, when they allow parking on a busy street, what they effectively do is slow down the traffic. So now it becomes more homey, and you're not flying through there at 50 miles an hour on East Washington Street. And, you know, you see the shops opening up that weren't there. The boutique restaurants are going there. The walkability, you know, the walkability in Fountain Square keeps getting extended, you know, where I'm not sure it's walkability, but Irvington is why I think it's going to be a good neighborhood to be for quite a few years, is the walkability of Irvington is great to get to the, you know, get to the places that you want to eat, and get to the shops, get to a theater and that kind of stuff. So walkability is a key.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. And just like, even if you're thinking about investing in an area, I think it's really important to just go down and walk around, or even just drive around those neighborhoods, just get a feel for them. You know, I always look at, you know, kind of that Fountain Square area, the Bates Hendricks. You go down there, there's a lot of, I kind of think of it as like the younger generation, where kind of, you know, the people that, you know, not necessarily the hipsters and stuff, but like kind of that, you know, that young, fun thing. They just want, you know, they want to go out to the bar, they want to go out to coffee shops and stuff like that. And then I look at, you know, so I look at that, that's the flip market there. But then when I go to, you know, Windsor Park, I drive through there and check it out. I think that is a good flip market as well. But what I see there is a lot of families moving in. So you see people out in the yard playing with, you know, the kids and stuff like that. You see that more and more as you're driving around there. So you kind of got a whole different flip market as you're trying to analyze the deal of what you want to buy for.
Yeah, like I don't know if Lexington and its Fountain Square is walkable to the center of Fountain Square, right? Like that's always like, I always have that dilemma. They're like, oh yeah, this is Fountain Square, walkable 3 miles to the center. I'm like, I haven't walked 3 miles in my whole in the last 10 years. Like, let's be real.
It's kind of like Broad Ripple. You know, there's South Broad Ripple now.
Yeah.
So bro, it's really Broad Ripple.
It's Broad
basically, you know, it's just 10 miles down the road.
Well, the funny thing is, no, it used to be, it's now South Broad Ripple. It used to be the fairgrounds, and people was like, I'm not going to the fairgrounds.
But that's just it. I mean, that's what you have to look at. You know, kind of back to your question of what, you know, kind of what is changing in that neighborhood. You got to look at what what shops are coming in there, what restaurants are coming in there, and that's really what's just turning around. I mean, I look at Sobro as a really good example of that. They put that, you know, that Monon Center, all those shops and all those just little boutiques and eateries around there, and then just all of a sudden you have people just buying little, you know, 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom houses, and basically they're putting second stories on top of it now, and there's really building up that little family area.
I have to say, man, this is just transparency, right? I've only been in this for 7-8 years, so this is the first real turn that I'm seeing of neighborhoods, right? Like, you know what I mean? Where Dave probably seen 5 to 6, you know, like so many other these.
Well, when you started, it's probably more like people are still moving out to the suburbs and doing the Carmel and the Westfield and stuff like that. So, which is still going on, but we're also having these hot areas down here in the downtown and stuff.
So, and that's something I'm always contemplating. Like, what Ron's question is like, what is that thing? And one thing I see on the rental side that I've been able to determine is we're always seeking for the next stable thing that has this moderate price point to get in. Like it seems seems like, and I may be wrong, like I said, you have to take this for my around 10 years of experience, but it seems like people want to get in rentals it's this group of people that wants to get in for less than 100,000. It seems like it's this threshold. Like, if I can get in for less than 100,000, how much can I get over on like the after repair value? And those neighborhoods are what we always are trying to seek. And then I think, to Dave's point, they're always are looking for those indicators to be able to increase the value more. Because right now, the hot market for us is like Lawrence. Lawrence is really hot for us for rentals. And only thing I can say that makes Lawrence hotter than anything else is just because of the things that already have been there, but they're expanding, like Fort Bend, and you know, as you get closer to Fort Bend, the houses are improving in the neighborhood. But honestly, I can't say that I know exactly the indicator why Lawrence is booming now.
One of the things, Lawrence is a good example. That the indicator is that in Lawrence, you can go buy an 800 square foot 2 or 3 bedroom house or 1,000 square foot house for an affordability factor.
About 50 to 60,000.
Yeah, and you can put 25,000 in that house and feel comfortable that you can get 100,000 out of it because it's the best marketplace. And even the people that want to rent can do that. I mean, they can pay that. And even if they have $100,000, that house will rent and give them a fair return on their capital.
And I think that's the point that I was trying to make. It's like, it seems like there's always a niche where you're trying to get that ARV of 100,000. And what is that next neighborhood that's going to be able to give that ARV, but still be able to be 50,000 RN? Because 3 years ago, Eagledale could do that, right? Like, Eagledale could give me 50. I put 20 all in. I'm 70. Now ARV's 100,000, right? And the rental comps are 950. So I've only put 70 in, but my rental comp's 950. I'm winning. I have cash flow.
Well, and you know, you talked earlier. You just made the statement as far as I've seen areas transform. You know, I really haven't seen a lot of areas transform, just because we stayed in our own little pocket because the hedge funds weren't playing in our sandbox. So we could go in the 1990s and after and find flips and do them, and the flipping game was, you know, a lot easier than it is now, because now we have to, you know, we're in Irvington right now and we're doing a flip that I never thought I would do, and you know, we paid 60 for it and we're putting 140 in it. So we're reinventing the wheel for me in an Irvington neighborhood, but we also know that we're going to have a product out there that if it were in Fountain Square would sell for 100 more than I'm going to sell it for in Irvington. So that's why we like those kinds of neighborhoods, and we see everything else exploding around us. And Irvington's a very difficult area to do in. You have to be on your toes because Irvington has some historical requirements that we have to deal with every day, and we have to figure out how to navigate through all of that. And that's why I think it will keep the average flipper out of the area for a while.
So we have about a minute left in this segment, but one of the things that I often wonder about is the impact that the city has on these areas, like if they put money into infrastructure, sidewalks, roads, other facilities, that kind of helps jumpstart those areas too, right?
Yeah, definitely. Well, we just talked like last week about the new Red Line, you know, the bus system they're putting in just for that, you know, stretch of downtown. And like I've sold 2 properties in the last, I think 3 weeks, just advertising, hey, close to the Red Line, of where they're putting the Red Line. And so what the city's doing around town definitely affects how we're analyzing deals, buying deals, selling deals, definitely. So.
Oh, it goes hand in hand. It's one of the reasons why I'm always trying to be close to the politicians in, you know what I mean?
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's because they know, and it makes them look good. You know what I mean? They don't want rental properties that look run down in their districts and things. So it's a strategic partnership that I pride myself on.
Well, good. This is a great discussion. I want to continue this in a little bit more detail. I'm going to ask you guys some, like, how do you come up with your numbers, or what kind of formulas you might be looking at, things like that. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after this message.
Midwest Garage Door Systems, Real Talk's premium sponsor, is a locally and family-owned business, answering your garage door repair and replacement needs for over 30 years in Central Indiana. Doing business the right way is what Midwest is all about. Check out MidwestGarageDoors.com or call 317-449-8440, 317-449-8440.
Are you looking for a new place for lunch or dinner, or a fun place to hold your next company party? Check out Trader's Mill Grill and Bar. Awesome, friendly staff, fabulous food made from scratch, full bar and daily drink specials. Make it an evening with more than 20 screens to get your favorite games, including Golden Tee. Also has 3 pool tables. You can find their menu and hours at tradermill.com. Check out Trader's Mill Grill and Bar located at 5650 West 86th Street, Indianapolis, Indiana.
Do you have a house that you want to sell, but you don't want to fix it up before you sell it? Or you need the cash quickly? Or you just inherited Aunt Susie's house and don't know what to do with it? That's what Dave Short does. He buys houses so you can get on with your life. He pays cash, closes quickly, and buys in all Central Indiana. For details, call Dave at 317-590-4499 or email Dave at bshort@c21sheets.com. That's spelled C21SCHEETZ.com.
And welcome back to the program. This is Real Talk, and my name is Ron Watson. I'm the president of the board of directors of CIREIA. And today I'm joined in the studio by Dave Short, Century 21 Sheets, Brian Snyder with Simple Wholesaling, and Sterling Davis with Athosity Property Management. We've been talking about how to analyze properties, how each investor looks at things a little bit differently depending upon what you're doing, flipping, rehabbing, if you're a landlord. And I just thought I'd make this point before we get back into the discussion. You know, one of the things that we do at CIREIA, which I think is really important, is to help people understand a lot of this information. I mean, we can't cover everything today in great detail, but we have subgroup meetings where we may be talking about just wholesaling or just being a landlord, and you can get a lot more information about the questions that you really have and the information that you need to know in order to be a successful real estate investor, and also meet these people that are on the radio show and that are actually out there doing the work and really know what they're doing. So that's why we have this show, to provide you some of that information, but I think it's also really a good idea to join us at one of our meetings and learn about what we're doing. So I wanted to start this discussion in this segment kind of looking at numbers a little bit more. You know, one of the things that I hear people talk about, Sterling, is cap rate. And I'm also a landlord, so when I looked at my return, I look at a number of different things in terms of not just the rent, what am I getting in rent, but there's other things that I look at. So you can maybe start the discussion along those lines, if you would.
Yeah. So when I start thinking about how you analyze rental properties, and a lot of times people look at the capitalization rate, which, in example, the article that we was reading, I don't necessarily look at like the cap rate, because I don't know if it tells the whole story. You know what I mean? If you're talking about a rental property. But I do think it is a great indicator. Like most times people come to us, we ask like, hey, what is the number? They say, hey, I want to be between 8 and 15 or 20%, or, people get kind of outrageous with the capitalization rate, which is the required rate of return on the real estate. Which the two things that I mainly look at when I start analyzing and helping people is cash flow and appreciation. Cash flow is simply the money left after all the bills have been paid, and appreciation is the equity gained as the property value increases. But all of us have different ways. We have cap rates, the NOI, we have all these different ways that you can determine what your thing is. But for me, it's mostly those two things. The appreciation, unless you kind of have a crystal ball, you really don't know what that true appreciation is. You know what I mean? So I think I look at appreciation as icing on the cake. You know what I mean?
Wouldn't you say, is it a fair statement to look at cap rates and say it's really not as important, or it's not a determining factor for landlords under $100,000, and the higher the property gets, the cap rates become more important? If you're buying a $10 million apartment building, cap rate is everything.
Oh, absolutely.
It's everything. It's almost all they look at.
Right.
And but in a $100,000
a single family,
house,
I think it's icing on the cake, not the goal. You get what I'm saying? Like, I think it's something that we're able to look at and determine that rate in which that return happens. But it's really icing on the cake for me, because at the end of the day, most landlords that come to me are looking for cash flow, because cash flow is the thing that's going to be able to get to $20,000 and you can remove yourself from your job, or you can remove you and your wife from doing X, Y, and Z, right? Like, the rate in which you return is important, because that is going to determine, is this a good investment, is it not a good investment? But one of the best ways to determine that is, am I making money? Realistically, am I making real money, or am I not making real money? Like, the liquidity that I get from the rents, am I actually making money?
Well, let me give you a real life example of an investor that I have right now. She bought a bunch of rentals in Fishers, and she made a cap rate of around 5%, which I thought was low for the value of the inventory that she had. Well, what we didn't figure into consideration, she has now owned these properties 5 years, and now the value of each one of these properties has gone up about $30,000. So she's made, 10 properties, she's made $300,000 in 5 years while getting a cash flow of 5%.
And
so
she probably hasn't had in that area. She probably hasn't had the
she
turnover.
has very little turnover and very little problems, and she's she's a good property manager, but she's she befriends all of her tenants, and they don't want to not pay her if they possibly can.
Well, I think that's absolutely true, right? I think the thing is, when I got into this, 7, 8 years ago, people were really big about cap rates. And I think what you start seeing is what happens when that appreciation doesn't happen at the rate of the return that you're thinking, right? But you still are able to have that cash flow. You know what I mean? So that's why when I get new investors, I'm like, as much as appreciation is great, and the equity in the house is what we're looking for, we have to make sure that we're actually making a positive amount on the NOI is important. You know what I mean?
If you don't, I've been in rentals before, and it's not necessarily my favorite thing, but what I've found out and what I've told other investors that want to get into this game is they'll say, well, as long as I can break even, I get equity buildup. You have to have positive cash flow, or you will get burnout owning rental property. The growth of equity is fun, but dealing with the pressures that come with a rental property and the tenants and the games you get to play with certain kinds of tenants, you've got to have positive cash flow to reward yourself.
Yeah, like for me, and everybody's different. I'll let you jump in, Brian. Like, I think for me, on my properties that I'm doing, this is not what you have to do, is all the properties I own personally, I need $200 in positive cash flow on each door. You know what I mean? If I can get to $200, that's meaning like the mortgage is $800 and the property will rent for, say $1,500. You know what I mean? After the mortgage, after the taxes, after the insurance, I need to at least have $200 in that cash flow.
Does that go over to, let's say you were able to buy a small 8-unit apartment building? Does that go over to that, or do you expect more or less?
You expect a little bit less, but the quantity is what makes it up, because then 10% of that building is going to pay most of your expenses. You know what I'm saying? Like, most of the expenses that are going to get paid through the building is going to be made up of the multiple buildings that we have, right? So one of the buildings being vacant is not going to hurt us. Now, 50% of the building being vacant will kill us.
Yeah, and plus you have in a $1 million property, let's say that a 2% appreciation is a bigger number than a 2% appreciation on a $50,000 property.
Right.
So then you're willing to maybe accept some of that. Brian, did you have something you want to add to that?
Yeah, just kind of, we're talking about the rental property and stuff. Just from the wholesaler side, is what we always like to try to do is basically when we are marketing a property, we like to kind of just have that 2% rule in our head of like what we kind of think about. And that by that 2% rule is what I mean. If we're talking about like a C or a D neighborhood, basically where your rent is 2% of what you buy it for. So your monthly rent is 2% of what you buy it for. So let's say you were able to market a property for $30,000 to be able to sell to our investors. Hopefully the rent is somewhere around like $600. It might be in between like $550 and $650, but somewhere around there. If you're in a B neighborhood, it might be like a 1.5% rule. If you're in an A neighborhood, we kind of talk about the 1% rule. So some of your outlying neighbors, but we always just kind of keep that in our head as we're trying to basically sell to our investors and when we're buying as well. And I don't know, Sterling, kind of what your thoughts are on that. Kind of just, it's kind of really basic, but it puts you in a good state, I think.
I think those are like the great, like you have your hard and fast rules, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like I have some people that's like, I need 1.5. That's the starting point, and then I'll analyze. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to analyze 100 homes. Like, you know what I mean? Like you want to cut the fat. Like, you know what I mean? And the way that most people cut the fat is kind of like having those general rules that you set up. Like, all right, I need 2% at least. I need 30%. I need, you know what I mean? You have to have some general rules that you can kind of do fast. So then when you see a house, you know, all right, that generally is something I will look at. And then you start analyzing, because honestly, it's a lot of properties out there and it can burn you out. And then you start getting anxious just to buy based off of it. Right. You know, for us, you know, when we start analyzing for our investor, we look at the ARV and then we do the 30% rule and then we start deducting, right? That's kind of that BRRRR strategy. You know what I mean? If our investor is able to do it, like that 30% of that equity is enough so that appreciation is there.
Yeah, it makes sense. I had an experience with, in Broad Ripple, I was so good 15, 20 years ago. I started buying rental properties there, and things were going well. The problem I had was the properties appreciated, which isn't necessarily a problem, but taxes went up.
Oh, yeah.
And then it got to the point where I really wasn't making any money anymore on my rentals, and I could charge $1,000 a month, but then they could go buy something and pay $850. So the numbers just didn't work at some point, and I had to sell those. But you know, so sometimes, and that was, you know, after 10 years. So I guess, you know, that's not terrible, but if you pick right, that could happen, right?
Well, that's how do you factor that in, and just like the, you know, maybe just the rent appreciation too? Like, how do you guys factor that in with when you're talking to your investors?
Yeah, so I think you have to plan for everything, right? So you have to make sure you're planning for your taxes, your insurance, your flood insurance, your water, your sewage, your garbage, your gas, your electric, your HOA fees, your snow removal, your lawn care. You have to your CapEx is a huge thing that people forget, right? So if you're really at a point where you're going to buy a house, let's make sure that you plan for these things so that it doesn't bite you in the rear.
I didn't think of half of those things when I was buying. I should have known. I wish I would have known Sterling back in those days. But
here's what I can buy for. Here's what I can rent for. Oh, that's it.
That's all I got. That was the only math I could do. But anyway, all right, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back after this message. Are you looking for a career change or a life change? That is the mission behind Simple Wholesaling, the leading provider of discounted properties in Indianapolis. Simple Wholesaling is all about making the process simple for buyers of properties, sellers of properties, and members of the Central Indiana community who want to generate wealth, free up time, and then help you use that wealth and freedom to make a difference in the world. Check them out at www.simplewholesaling.com or email Brian@simplewholesaling.com or call 317-494-7211.
Is this you? You've heard about landlording and you love the idea of a steady stream of income from real estate, but you're concerned about tackling the 2 a.m. calls and worrying about renters who don't pay their rent on time? That's where the pros at Ethosity Property Management take the hassle out of investing for you. They handle the toilets and tenants for over 300 local rentals and are happy to help you with yours. Call Sterling at 888-212-3764 or check out www.ethosity, that's ETHOSITYPM.com.
Are you wanting to get started in investing but don't know what to do first? Maybe you took one of the National Guru classes, but you're still confused. Our members are doing business locally, and they remember that they were beginners at one time too. Start by joining the biggest and oldest real estate investment club in Central Indiana. Take our classes and network with people who love what they do and are willing to help you through the startup stage. Check out CIREIA.org. That's CIREIA.org.
And welcome back to Real Talk. My name is Ron Watson, the president of the board of directors of CIREIA. And joining me in the studio today is Dave Short, Brian Snyder, and Sterling Davis. And we've been talking about analyzing deals from different perspectives depending upon whether you're a landlord, rehabber, flipper, wholesaler, whatever you might be. And we talked just in the last segment a lot about landlords and rentals. I wanted to switch gears and go back to Dave for a minute and talk about flipping. And I know people ask you all the time, what kind of profit margin should I be getting on these deals?
Well, probably the most asked question I get at our subgroup in CIREIA is, what do you want to make on a house? And when I ask that question, it seemed like I get the answer is as much as I can, and it just doesn't work that way. We go in on every house with a scope of work, and then we try to determine what we think we're going to make with that, and then we judge that by the risk that we're taking with location and repairs and timing. So as a general scenario, I would say that if I did a house for $100,000 all in, my goal at that house would probably be somewhere in the 18 to 20% range from a profit, which would be $18,000 to $20,000, knowing that because of surprises and unknown things, we tend to get cut down, and hopefully if we end up at 15%, we're pretty comfortable with that deal. But there again, that all boils down to timing. I got a great analogy on an investor I talked with this morning. He had a deal in Noblesville, and he said, well, should I do it? I want to normally make this kind of money, and once I buy the house for $120,000 and I put $10,000 in it, and I sell it for only $150 or $155 or $160, I'm only going to make $11,000 on the transaction if I factor in everything. And I said, well, $11,000 in itself going in is probably a short profit margin. But what you have to look at is that you'll have the house completed in 2 weeks. We know because of its location it will sell in under a week, priced fairly, and we know it will close in another month. So now you're only in that property for 6 weeks, and you're going to make $11,000. So if you take an annualized basis on that money, that's a 60% return. Yeah. I'm okay with 60% returns on the capital because the safeness of the deal makes the deal. So we as an investor, and I told him, I said, if you don't want to take the $11,000 or $12,000 profit, I'll do your deal and take it. Because just the ease of what that's going to happen in that transaction, where the house that I mentioned earlier in the show in Irvington, where we're putting $140,000 in it, if we only made $10,000, I would be suicidal.
Yeah.
Because that's a 6 or 7 month program, and I have $200,000 tied up versus in this one we're going to have about $17,000 or $18,000 tied up.
Is that one of the biggest kind of transitions as you're working with new flippers and working through your subgroup and people through there? Is that a lot of people, I feel like they always just have a money set, I want to make $30,000 on every flip I do or whatever it is. So for
whether it takes me a year or 2 years,
right?
Or
whether
6 weeks
to get them to transition to that kind of percentage.
Well,
mindset,
they tend to look at the money. How much am I going to make, or I want to make this much. Well, it's like if you had $200,000 tied up in a house and you made $20,000. Well, $20,000 is a lot of money. I mean, it's still, but it's taken you a year to do that. So that's only a 10% return on your money, and you may have a cost that exceeds that to hold that house. And that's why when we train, this is some of the stuff you get CIREIA when you go to your subgroup on wholesaling, my subgroup on flipping. We make you look at the cost of funds to do that. Because a hard money lender, they're very valuable in our way of doing business in Indianapolis. But the bigger the transaction or house that you're flipping and you're using hard money, the more the hard money guy becomes your partner. Yep. And not your your bank. So that's why when we say hard money, we want our investors to be not have 200 with a hard money, because at a 15% cost in a year, that's 30,000. Your lender's going to make your first 30,000 in profit, and you hope you have something left over.
Dave, so one of the things I always think about is the value of my time, right? Like, how do you come up with the valuation of the time that you spend on these projects that you're working on?
Well, we all have a value of time. If and it quickly boils down to, if you want to make, $80,000 a year, and you value your time at $100, how many hours a week is that you have to work to get that? So that's the value of my time. But what you have to be careful with in the flipping business is, I've done some flips where the value of my time was about $8 an hour in doing these flips. And some of them, I paid them to do it. So, but then there's other things that, that my time to do this was very limited. We're getting ready to put 2 flips on the market, that are entry level flips, and the value of my time will be $500 an hour from the time invested. But that's not the norm.
Right.
I mean, the norm is, the first time flipper, he wants to, you want to do well, but you want to make wages. And you hope the wages is $30-$40 an hour, and that sometimes is not an easy. I've had a lot of flips where my contractors in my bank have made more than I have, and it's just part of it.
Yeah. Well, that kind of is like that second level analysis too, of like, we're going through that where, hey, I need to open up some cash right now, so I'm okay like taking a hit on this property or breaking even on these 2 just so I can free up some cash to be able to do this. So that kind of gets into that analysis thing as well. I know when we're looking at, selling to, people that are looking to flips and stuff, so we kind of go by what we like to call the 70% rule, to where basically if you take the ARV, which is the after repair value, so basically after the house is fixed up, what would this property basically be valued at on the market? Take away, what you need to, any repair costs, anything like that, subtract from there, and then about 70% of that is what we want to be able to sell it to our investors at. We generally think around Indianapolis and Indiana, like that's generally where the investors like to buy at, is a 70% rule. So we try to, basically for us as wholesalers, we like to try to come in, buy these properties at 60%. That way we're able to sell it to our investors at 70%. They're still able to have that, 30% profit, hopefully by the end of it. And there's money coming off depending on if they have hard money or whatever, but they still have room in there to make what they need to.
I was going to ask, because I was going to jump to you, because I feel like the biggest problem I have with wholesalers is they don't have an analyzation like you guys have. Like,
we're honestly, we're not that great. We're kind of in a position to where we are buying our properties. We're more kind of doing that wholesaling method
absolutely.
Where we're buying them, we're putting a lockbox, we're cleaning them out, putting a lockbox on, stuff like that. So we can send our investors through. So we can say, hey, I'd feel a lot more comfortable instead of me giving you my numbers. Why don't you send your contractor through, send your inspector through, and be able to handle it that way? I can give you a ballpark of what I think, but I'm not the one that's out there like walking through all my properties and looking at this. And that is the problem with a lot of wholesalers, to where they're not in them as well, and they're basically like they only have pictures of the outside. And they're like, oh yeah, it just needs this and this, and well, ARV is always.
We get a lot of scope, and I get that ask a lot of people that, hey, I'm looking at Brian's house on that, and the scope of work is this, or I'm looking at other wholesalers and their scope of work is this. And I said, you don't even need to look at those numbers. It's your numbers that you make the decision on. So if they're, sometimes because they miss it or don't do it, creates an opportunity for you. It's not really, don't bank on them, or they're giving you false information. They're giving you what they know, and that probably is not accurate.
Oh, I very rarely do I see a performer. I'm like, man, that is so accurate.
But that is one thing that I think is just so valuable if you are, wholesaler or flipper, no matter what you are in as far as real estate investing, being able to find your way to how you are going to analyze the deal, be able to figure out how you're going to get your numbers. I mean, that's just the most valuable thing. That's what you need to be able to do.
Well, and just going back to what we were talking about earlier on how much you want to make on a flip. Certainly for every sale price increment that you go up, your expectations of profit is going to go down. If we did a $300,000 flip, we're probably not going to make 20%.
Mm-hmm.
But on
True.
the same token, we potentially will have more buyers coming into that product. And there again, that's where timing comes in, getting the product done, getting it on the market.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And, get an inspection so there's no surprises on, we just finished our flip in Irvington that we sold, and, we had 3 items come back on an inspection response, which is
Right.
unheard of in a
Yeah.
flip.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, how quick can I sign this?
Done.
Move on. So, but on the same token, we did such a nice job. The property sold at an aggressive sale price, but everybody is so happy because they haven't looked at anything in that marketplace that meets these standards.
Yeah.
And so if you set the standards, you will get the price.
Man, Dave, you're going against everything negotiation teaches us. I thought everybody loses it when it's a good negotiation. Everybody feels like they lost something.
Well, that's the beauty of finding flips and doing it. If you're a win-win negotiator, you're almost always going to solve your problem and get what you want. And it's the old Zig Ziglar thing. If you help enough people get what they want, you will get what you want.
Yeah, Sterling, you asked earlier, how he values his time. That's why I love these sessions, because we get to talk to Dave like this.
Exactly.
And I feel like his value, nothing against you, but I feel like his value is way more than ours.
Oh, yeah. I pay to be here so I can talk to Dave.
Yes. Well, we're going to have to take a quick break, and we will be right back after this message.
Insurance companies say they're going to be there for you when life happens, but the truth is things can get pretty complicated fast when it comes to a personal injury accident. The steps you take after an unexpected crash are crucial. You need help every step of the way. Hey Andy, this is Dave Ramsey. I've been talking about the Randy 7-ish difference for several years now. For 34 years, Randy has helped thousands of people through their worst circumstances. Randy stands as a shield in between you and the insurance company. So even if you've started conversations with the insurance company after an injury accident, talk to Randy 7-ish to make sure you're not leaving money on the table. If you or someone you know has an injury accident, whether you're a pedestrian, passenger, driver, or rider, talk to Randy 7-ish first. Call 317-636-7777 for a no-obligation consultation. 7-ish Law, fierce protectors of the injured. 317-636-7777 or 7ishlaw.com.
Midwest Garage Door Systems, Real Talk's premium sponsor, is a locally and family-owned business, answering your garage door repair and replacement needs for over 30 years in Central Indiana. Doing business the right way is what Midwest is all about. Check out MidwestGarageDoors.com or call 317-449-8440, 317-449-8440.
And welcome back to the program. My name is Ron Watson, and this is Real Talk, where we talk about real estate investing done the right way. We've had a really interesting discussion today about analyzing a deal from various perspectives: rehabbing, flipping, wholesaling, landlord. And next segment, or the next show, that is next week, we'll be digging into this topic in more detail. So make sure that you join us. This will be, I guess we'll call this part 1, and part 2 will be...
Is this our first to be continued episode?
This is our to be continued episode, so don't leave the radio station. Just make sure that you join us, because it's going to be good. I think there's a lot more that we can cover. We kind of scratched the surface today. But what I want to go next is to go around the room and ask everybody for their tip of the week, their contact information, and any other parting words that they might have. I'll go ahead and start with Brian.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ron. So if you need to get a hold of me in any way, you can just send me an email at brian@simplewholesaling.com. That's BRIAN at simplewholesaling.com. Feel free to get on our website too, simplewholesaling.com, and just check out what we have: blogs, podcast, an ebook on there, as well as all of our properties and stuff. But my tip of the week this week is we are talking just about analyzing deals and all these different numbers and things like that. Man, my tip is just know what your numbers are. Especially if you're new and you're just starting off, take that time, figure out what your numbers are, and then stick to those numbers. I see a lot of investors as they're starting off that kind of they like to, if their number is, I don't know, $40,000 for a property, maybe they try to skirt it by a little bit by trying to stretch it to that 45, and then they end up getting into trouble. So when you start off, just know what your numbers are and stick to it, and just go from there until you can keep building up.
I like it.
Yep.
Thank you very much. And Sterling?
Yeah, so Sterling Davis, Ethosty Property Management. You can reach us at 888-212-EPMG, 888-212-3764. And I thank you guys. This was a great show. I think similar, adding to what Brian said, when it comes to landlording, I think it's 3 numbers that you need to look at. You need to look at your vacancy, you need to make sure you're looking at your CapEx, and you need to make sure that you're looking at your PM cost. Once you get past 5 doors, you need to get a PM, like just to make sure that they're doing it right. And then
what's a PM?
Property manager.
That's what you do, right?
I know a guy. I know a guy that can help you with it. And one thing I'll say about property management, it costs. You either pay for it on the front end or you pay for it on the back end. So everybody that's cheap's not good, and everybody that's good's not cheap.
Wow, there's more than one tip in there. How can people reach you, Sterling?
Yep.
If they need
So
to reach
888-212-EPMG. Talk to you soon.
Gotcha. That's fantastic. Dave?
Dave Short. I work at Century 21 Sheets, and the best way to reach me is my email at dshort@c21sheets, SCHEETZ.com. And 2 tips. One, I will concur with Sterling. We managed a bunch of our properties ourselves for a long time. Did okay until we didn't do okay. And when I came home and saw my wife crying in a chair saying that she's not going to do this and I'd rather go to work at McDonald's, I knew I was in the wrong business. And tip of the day is for President's Day. And I asked my granddaughter what President's Day meant to her, and I thought she would talk about how well our presidents did and about them. She says, well, I think the president comes out of the White House door, and if he sees his shadow, we're going to get another year of crap from the president.
Man, that's a wise young lady there.
We need to get her on the show here.
Yeah, exactly.
She probably doesn't take after her grandfather at all, right?
No.
Did you give your contact information, Dave?
I did.
Okay, great. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. It's been a really good discussion. We've had a lot of great information regarding how to analyze deals, and we're going to get into this a lot more detail at the next show. So make sure that you join us next week, same time, same location, and we'll get into a lot more detail there. You can also reach all of these folks where they just told you, find them at our CIREIA meetings and go to our website, find out more contact information about them. My name is Ron Watson, the president of the board of CIREIA, and you can reach me at president@cireia.org, or that might be changing, so stay tuned. But stop by my restaurant at Trader's Mill Grill. That won't be changing anytime soon, 5650 West 86th Street, and love to have you there. If you've missed previous episodes, you can listen to them on the CIREIA channel on YouTube, or go to cireia.club, which is CIREIA.club, and click on the resources tab for copies of all of our episodes. Every month at CIREIA, we have 10 small subgroup meetings drilling down on specific topics with local investing experts, and you can sign up for membership for the next monthly meeting at cireia.club, www.cireia.club. In March, Alan Cowgill is coming to town. He's been teaching investors how to secure private money for almost a decade, as well as multiple techniques involved with borrowing money for investing. That meeting is the first Thursday of March 7th, plus an all-day event on Saturday, March 9th. We wanted to thank everybody again for listening. Please join us again next week, and we'll talk to you then.